Hey, this is a video review of my Wii collection, so let's get started. First is Donkey Kong Jungle Beat New Play Control. It released a couple years ago, and it's a re-release of the GameCube game Donkey Kong Jungle Beat, and it's pretty good. It's not as good as the GameCube one since it doesn't use the bongo drums. I don't really know why they didn't have the bongo support since it's backwards compatible, but it kind of loses some of that visceral feeling, like the boss battles when you pound on the drums to like attack them. That's kind of gone in this one, so still pretty good. It's actually made by the Mario Galaxy developers, so you should give that a try. And next is Super Paper Mario. It's in the Paper Mario series. It's the third one. I wouldn't consider it to be as good as the first two on N64 and GameCube. It doesn't really. It's not really an RPG in the same way that the other two were, but still has pretty good dialogue and great localization by NOA. So maybe if you like the other two, maybe give this a shot. And this is Mad World, made by Platinum Games. If you've played Bayonetta or Vanquish, maybe you've heard of them. This is a black and white game to take advantage of the Wii since it's not as powerful and gives it a unique art style. And it's kind of like a brawler, a 3D brawler with lots of gore and swears. It actually has a couple commentators. One of them being John DiMaggio, voice of Bender, and Marcus Phoenix of all things. And pretty fun, kind of repetitive, but very, very violent. If you like violent games, then maybe give that a try. And next up, No More Heroes, the first one. I don't have the second one yet, but this is pretty good. The combat's really satisfying, especially the final blows when you actually use the Wii remote to attack. Very, very unique game made by Grasshopper Manufacturer, the same people who made Killer 7, among other things. And one thing I don't like about it is the open world. I see it as kind of making fun of open world games and how meaningless and empty they really are, but this does that too, so it's not really as funny since you kind of have to go through that here too. I'd get the second one over this, I'd imagine, so, or the PS3 one since that's coming out later in 2011 with Move support, if you got that. WarioWare Smooth Moves. I'm a huge WarioWare fan. I've been playing them since the beginning, the first one, the GBA, and this is pretty fun, but not as good as Twisted or Touched, or any of them really. Well, maybe except for the GameCube one. It has it uses the Wii Remote for just about all of the mini games, and sometimes the Wii Remote isn't very accurate, so that kind of ruins the fun of the game. But if you're a WarioWare fan, maybe I'd pick this up. It's kind of hard to find these days since it's out of print and has been for a few years, but if you find it, maybe you should check it out. New Super Mario Bros. Wii. This is actually my favorite game of 2009. I kind of like the DS one. It's pretty good. Kind of bare bones in some ways, but this is a really, really good game. I actually have only played the single player mode. I haven't done the multiplayer, which is kind of the big selling point of this game, but it has really, really good level design, and I really like the new power-ups in the game, especially the, I don't know what it is, the propeller suit. And it has one of my favorite Mario levels ever. Spoiler, level 9-7. A really difficult level. It requires a lot of memorization and kind of the hardest Mario level I've played in a long time. So the next kind of two games, Tatsunoko vs. Capcom, and I have the Japanese version right here because I wasn't sure if this was going to come out in America, so I imported it. Since the Tatsunoko licenses are spread out in the U.S., so I didn't think they'd pull it off, but they did. So I got this recently in a buy two get one sale, and it's in the Versus series, like kind of Marvel vs. Capcom and Capcom vs. SNK mold, and it's over the top and Has uh, characters like Mega Man from Mega Man Legends actually, and Ryu and stuff. You probably won't recognize many people from the Tatsunoko side since that's mainly a popular Japanese brand of anime. Unfortunately, it doesn't have Speed Racer, which is probably the most iconic Tatsunoko character in the U.S. But overall, it's pretty fun. It actually uses 4 buttons instead of 6 for combat, which is interesting, kind of simplified. It doesn't feel as smooth as Marvel vs. Capcom 2, so keep that in mind. Maybe haven't been playing it correctly. Pretty good. Not the best versus game, though. Donkey Kong Country Returns is actually a recent release, and I'm a huge Donkey Kong Country fan. Donkey Kong Country 2 is one of my favorite games ever, and this game isn't really like the Super Nintendo versions. Like, you don't really use the dynamic between Donkey Kong and Diddy Kong. Diddy is kind of like a power-up. He gives you like a rocket boost to give you, kind of like in Yoshi's Island, to get that extra boost from Yoshi. It's pretty much what Diddy Kong does. You can't actually play as Diddy unless it's a co-op game. And the level design is actually really, really good. It's made by Retro Studios, who made the Metroid Prime trilogy. And one of the things I don't like is the music, which is a shame because the music in the original trilogy is incredible and probably the best video game music ever made, quite frankly. So this didn't really do it justice, but still a really fun and very difficult game. You'll die a lot. So if you're a Donkey Kong fan, I definitely get this. And then Super Smash Bros. Brawl. It was a very awaited sequel. Lots of delays, lots of hype, and it's actually pretty divisive these days between Melee fans and Brawl fans. They don't like the fact that you can randomly trip in this game, and they slowed it down a little, I assume, so it could play online a lot smoother, which still didn't really work out for them. But I actually think this is a better game than Melee. Just combat-wise, I'm more of a defensive guy in general, and it's a more defensive game in general, so that's good. And the music, the soundtrack is easily the best of this generation. Tons of great remixes. It's amazing, and the stages are really cool. My favorite is the WarioWare stage, because I'm a WarioWare fan, as I said earlier, and yeah, I can't recommend this enough. But I haven't really played the single player mode, the Subspace Emissary or whatever. It looked kind of dumb, so maybe if they flesh that out in the future, I'll give it a chance. But for now, still playing multiplayer. Wario Land Shake It. It's made by actually the same people who made Kirby's Epic Yarn. And the animation is really, really good in this game. 2D animation. If you played a Wario Land game, this is pretty much just like those. I would say the missions, the submissions you get, like beating a level in a certain time, are kind of lame, kind of cheap too. It's a solid game, but I prefer Wario Land 4 over this and 3. I haven't played the Virtual Boy one, but I want to do that. It's really cheap these days, so if you want a good 2D platformer, this one's pretty solid. Metroid Prime 3, I guess I'll get into that later with the trilogy, so no point in talking about that here. Sonic and the Secret Rings, this was actually a pretty early Wii game. Didn't really like this game. Didn't really like the controls. I would have preferred using a controller. And the menu music is terrible. I hope you never have to torture yourself by listening to that. The graphics are pretty decent, and I don't really have much to say about this. Yep, moving on. Zack and Wiki. It's also a pretty early one for the Wii, and it's a kind of a puzzle adventure game, and it uses the Wii remote in a lot of interesting ways. And it didn't sell very well, unfortunately. It's actually a really good game. And, yep, I definitely recommend this one since it's really cheap. And, yeah, it's pretty unique. You won't find this on any other platformer anything like that. So, this is Mario Kart Wii. It's pretty much your standard Mario Kart game, and yeah, there really isn't too much to say about this. I don't really. It's a solid game, but I wouldn't consider it anything special. I didn't play too much of this since I feel like I played enough Mario Kart in my life, and yeah, it comes with a Wii wheel, as you can see Mario and Luigi holding, and they're actually pretty accurate, but I definitely recommend using the Wii Remote and Nunchuck setup, just because they're more accurate. And the online is actually really good, I have to say. It's never lagged for me, so pretty surprising for a Wii game. And The Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess, probably the reason why most people got a Wii at launch, definitely for me. And it's kind of like a sequel to Ocarina of Time, spiritually anyway. Kind of like the dynamic with Midna and Link. I think Midna's a great character. Definitely not as good as Ocarina of Time. It doesn't really capture kind of that magic that Ocarina did back in 1998, and I didn't really like the Wii Remote controls either. If you don't mind not having true widescreen, I'd probably go with the GameCube version, just because it has a standard button layout and full camera control. So, yeah. And this is a remake, or a re-release of the Resident Evil remake. It was on GameCube. This is it still looks great to this day. Most of it is pre-rendered background, so that's probably why. And if you like Resident Evil, you'll like this game a lot. It still has the tank controls, so if you never like those, you probably won't like them now, especially now since so much time has passed. And not too much to say about this. If you probably played this before, if you're into these things. And Klonoa, this is a full remake of the PlayStation game of the same name. Well, it has a subtitle too, but this is a really underrated platformer that not a lot of people have played. Kind of kiddie in some ways, thematically, but it has a great ending, and the platform is really solid. The controls are really good, which that's what you want in a platformer. Tell that to the makers of Little Big Planet and Media Molecule. Anyway, I don't want to digress too much. Excite Truck, another Wii launch title. I got this at launch along with Zelda, and it's pretty fun, kind of bare bones in a way. It doesn't have many maps, doesn't have many modes, but it's actually really solid. Puts a lot of emphasis on getting points by doing stuff like power sliding and such, doing tricks in the air, and so you don't have to get first place to win. You just have to get the most stars. And the gameplay is really smooth, and the controls you have to get used to, but they're actually pretty responsive once you get used to it. It's a kind of a Wii remote, holding it sideways and steering that way. So, and this is Wii Fit. Don't really have much to say about this one. It is what it is. If you get whatever you put into it, so I didn't really maintain my Wii Fit play, so I didn't really reap the benefits of this. The minigames weren't that fun, so yeah, I don't know why I got this, to be honest. And Mario Party 8, I'm actually a pretty big Mario Party fan for some reason. I love the first three on the N64.